My parents sold my house while I was out of state, and I only learned when my neighbor called about strangers moving in. They claimed family assets belonged to everyone, and my brother needed a flawless wedding. I handed them a single document that made their faces go pale. Can you imagine the gut punch of getting a call for 100 miles away, only to be told your own parents had sold your house, without your knowledge, to fund your brother's wedding? My entire world shattered that day, but what came next was a cold, hard lesson in family loyalty that forever changed who I am. For years, I was the responsible one in my family, which, let's be honest, was just code for the one they felt entitled to. I genuinely thought I'd put enough distance, built enough boundaries, that it was finally over. Then my neighbor called, and the words she said, "Strangers are moving into your house." My house. That's when I knew everything I thought I understood about my family was a lie. But before I tell you about that call, let me set the scene. I'm 30, a risk assessment consultant, and 2 years ago, I bought my dream home, a beautiful 3-bedroom colonial in Lower Marion Township. I'd worked my butt off for that house, saved up a 20% down payment, and had been making mortgage payments like clockwork. It was mine. My parents always had a favorite, and it sure as hell wasn't me. It was Drake, my younger brother. They paid for his entire college education. I'm still chipping away at student loans. They bought him a nearly new car when he turned 21. I worked warehouse shifts for 2 years just to afford a used truck. While all this insanity was unfolding, a memory flashed back to me. I was 8, and I'd saved for weeks, doing odd jobs, for this remote control car I desperately wanted. Drake, who was 4, decided he wanted the same car. I came home from school one day to find my piggy bank empty. My mom sat me down and explained that Drake really wanted that car, and I was old enough to understand sharing. Drake got the car. I got a lecture about being mature and putting family first. That was the template. That was always the template. And honestly, it broke something in me every time. 8 months ago, Drake got engaged to Luna, a sweet enough woman. They're both still figuring out their career paths. Drake does social media for a local fitness chain. Luna works part-time, doing nails and lashes. Nothing wrong with that, at all. Except they were planning this massive destination wedding in Costa Rica. It was draining my parents financially, and I knew it was going to be an issue. 3 weeks ago, I left for Ohio on a major work project. It was a big deal. A 3-week assessment at a manufacturing plant, serious compliance issues, high visibility. The kind of work that really builds your career. Before I left, I asked my parents if they could just check on the house occasionally, water the plants, grab the mail, standard neighborly stuff. They still had spare keys from when they helped me move in. Of course, honey, my mom had cooed, all warmth and smiles. We'll take good care of everything. I should have noticed the weird vibe then. My dad kept drilling me about my exact travel dates. When was I leaving? What time was my flight? When exactly was I coming back? He asked if my neighbors had my contact info, if anyone else had keys. I just brushed it off, thinking he was paranoid about break-ins. God, was I naive? He wasn't worried about a break-in. He was planning one of his own. 4 days into the project, deep in a meeting about ventilation hazards, my phone started buzzing. An unknown local number. I ignored it. It buzzed again. Then a text. This one I recognized. Rosalie, my neighbor from 2 houses down. We've become pretty good friends over the last year. She's a freelance graphic designer, works from home, and lives with a ridiculously judgmental cat named Chairman. Her text was short, chilling. Call me when you can. Something weird is happening at your place. My stomach dropped. I excused myself, heart pounding, and called her back from the parking lot. Hey, Rosalie, what's going on? What she said next. I'll never forget it. Okay, don't panic, but there's a sold pending rider on a for sale sign in your yard, and there are people moving furniture into your house right now. I stopped dead in my tracks. Say that again. My voice was a whisper. There's a moving truck in your driveway. 2 guys are carrying boxes inside. I saw your parents here earlier, walking a couple I don't recognize through your house like they own the place. Your mom told them they could start bringing things over because the paperwork was almost done. She paused. I thought maybe you sold it and just didn't tell me. But then I thought, that seems really unlike you. So I'm calling. My hands went instantly cold. What do the people look like? I asked, my voice barely steady. Couple in their 30s, blonde woman, tall guy with dark hair. They look excited. They even have a kid with them, maybe 5 or 6. The movers are unloading a couch right now. Can you see my parents? Your dad left about 20 minutes ago, but your mom is still out front, chatting with the blonde woman like they're best friends. The audacity. I fumbled to pull up my doorbell camera app. The hotel Wi-Fi, of course, was garbage, and it took an agonizing second to load. But when it finally connected, there it was. Exactly what Rosalie described. My mother, on my front porch, gesturing at my house like some proud realtor. A woman I'd never seen, nodding and smiling. And in the background, two movers were carrying my patio furniture past my kitchen window. I checked my smart lock logs. For entries in the past week, all from my parents' code. The last one, just 2 hours ago. My mind was racing. Rosalie, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I need you to do something for me. Anything. Okay, she said, calm and ready. Take photos if you can do it safely. License plates on the moving truck, on any cars in the driveway. Timestamp everything. Do not approach anyone. If they ask what you're doing, say you're documenting for the neighborhood watch. Rosalie asked, are you okay? I'm going to handle this, I told her, my voice steel. Thank you for calling. Seriously, she offered. If you need me to go knock on the door. No, please don't. I cut her off. I'm not losing a good neighbor because my parents decided to audition for World's Worst Criminals. Just eyes and photos. That's it. Got it, she said. Calling you back in 10 with pictures. The sheer audacity of it all. It was like I was in some twisted, sick movie. I hung up with Rosalie and just stared at my phone, trying to make sense of the utter, sickening absurdity. My own parents, actively helping strangers move into my house, for 100 miles away, without my knowledge, without my permission. Rage started to simmer, a cold, hard rage I hadn't felt in years. I called them. My dad picked up on the third ring, jovial as ever. Hey, sport. How's Ohio treating you? My blood ran cold. Cut it, I snapped. What the hell is happening at my house? Silence. I heard muffled voices, my mom's in the background. We were going to talk to you about this when you got back. Talk to me now, I demanded. Why are there strangers moving into my house? Another pause. Then my dad, trying to sound reasonable. We made a difficult decision while you were away. Drake's wedding is next month, and we've hit some major vendor deadlines. The final venue payment, travel packages, the upgraded reception, it all came due at once. We were running out of options. What? I asked, my voice dangerously low. Does that have to do with my house? We found a buyer, he explained, as if this were normal. Young family, very motivated. They're in a bind with their rental situation and needed to start the transition. We worked out an arrangement where they could begin moving some things in while we handled the final paperwork. With your equity, you'll walk away with enough to restart elsewhere. Enough to. You listed my house without my permission. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Not listed exactly, he stammered. We found someone through a contact. Very private transaction. The important thing is, how did you sign the paperwork? I interrupted, my mind reeling. It's not your house. Your names aren't on the deed. Then, clearly, my mom's voice, closer to the phone, dripping with false wisdom. Family assets belong to everyone, honey. We raised you. We helped you when you were struggling. And now Drake needs help starting his life with Luna. This is how families work. Family assets belong to everyone. I repeated slowly, the words tasting like ash. That's your position? It's not a position, it's reality, she chirped. We're a family unit. What benefits one benefits all. Drake deserves a beautiful wedding. And you've always been the responsible one who figures things out. You'll be fine. My voice went ice cold, but my hands were shaking so hard I thought I'd drop the phone. I'm going to call you back in 5 minutes. Don't move. Don't touch anything. Don't say a word to anyone. My dad, indignant. Now, son, there's no need to be dramatic. I didn't dignify that with a response. I just hung up. I sent all the documents to Rebecca, booked the first flight home. Then I called my parents back. My dad answered, and I didn't let him speak. I'm going to talk. You're going to listen, I stated, my voice dangerously calm. I just got off the phone with a real estate fraud attorney. I'm filing an emergency motion to stop whatever closing you've arranged. I've contacted the police. I have photographic evidence of unauthorized persons entering my property, and I have documentation of everything you just told me on our previous call. He sputtered. This is ridiculous. We're your parents. We're not criminals. You sold property that isn't yours. I cut him off. You forged documents to make that happen. That's textbook fraud. In Pennsylvania, that's a felony. My mom's voice cut through, shrill now, with an unmistakable edge of fear. We didn't forge anything. We're helping you see the bigger picture. Drake's wedding is important, and you're acting selfish. We thought you'd understand once you calmed down. Family assets belong to everyone. I quoted back at her, the words dripping with sarcasm. Is that still your position? Yes. Then I guess we'll let a judge decide if my house counts as a family asset. My voice hardened. I'll be home in 6 hours. Don't go near my property. Don't contact the buyers. Don't touch anything. If you do, every additional action adds to the charges. I hung up. My hands were still shaking, but the clarity of purpose was like a jolt of ice water. I immediately checked my doorbell camera again. A police cruiser had pulled up. An officer was talking to my mother on the front porch. The blonde woman and her husband looked utterly bewildered. The movers had stopped unloading, standing by their truck, looking like they wanted to be literally anywhere else in the world. Good. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. Is this the homeowner? A man's voice, professional. Yes. Who is this? Officer Brennan, Lower Marion Township. I'm at your residence now. Your mother is saying you gave verbal permission for this arrangement and that you're going through some difficulties. Oh, the lies. Officer, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I am the sole recorded owner. I purchased the property in 2023. I can email you a copy of my deed, my mortgage statement, my driver's license, and proof that I'm currently in Ohio for work. I did not give permission for any sale or transfer. I knew nothing about this until my neighbor called me 40 minutes ago. He rattled off an email address. Your mother is insisting this is a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, officer. It's fraud. I have an attorney, Rebecca Walsh, filing emergency motions right now. I'm flying back tonight. Understood, he said. I'm going to secure the property and separate the parties. The buyers are pretty upset. I felt a pang of guilt for them. I'll cover any reasonable costs they've incurred because of this. They didn't do anything wrong. Noted, he replied. Send that documentation as soon as possible. I fired off all the documentation. My phone immediately started blowing up. Drake, my mom, my dad, Drake again. I ignored every single call. My focus was razor sharp. Get to the airport. A text from Rosalie popped up. Police are still there. Your mom is crying. The couple with the kid looks devastated. Movers left. Your dad just pulled up and he's arguing with the officer. Want me to keep documenting? Please. Everything. 40 minutes later, at the airport, I checked my email. Rebecca was a force of nature. She'd already filed the emergency motion and sent me a copy. She'd also contacted the title company, halting any pending transfer, demanding an investigation into the chain of title. Within the hour, the title company confirmed they were freezing all activity. Another text from Rosalie. Your parents just left. Police are talking to the buyers. They're crying. This is brutal. I called her. You doing okay? I asked, genuinely concerned. I'm fine, she said. I'm just really confused how your parents thought this was going to work. They thought I'd roll over because I always roll over. I admitted a bitter truth. This time, they miscalculated. What happens next? She asked. I fly home. I meet with my attorney. We figure out what the hell they did and how to undo it. Then, in an act of kindness that genuinely surprised me, she offered, my guest room is empty if you need it. Not being weird, just practical. You'll want to be close, and honestly, I'm invested now. I hesitated. Accepting help, especially when I felt so exposed, still felt foreign. That's really generous. Are you sure? I'm sure, she said, a slight smile in her voice. Chairman will judge you silently, but he judges everyone. You'll survive. All right. Thank you. I'll text you when I land. Officer Brennan had told me not to go back to the house until they cleared the scene. And honestly, after watching strangers carry furniture past my windows on camera, the thought of walking into that driveway at night, not knowing who might still be there, was unsettling. I boarded the plane, spent the entire flight devouring Pennsylvania real estate fraud law, and meticulously writing down every detail I could remember. Every conversation, every weird question my parents had asked before I left. Every time they'd pressured me about helping Drake, every single time they'd used that infuriating phrase, family assets, like it was some kind of sacred doctrine. I landed in Philly at 9 p.m. Rosalie picked me up. The drive was quiet, which I truly appreciated. She didn't push for details, just drove. My truck was still at my house, but I wasn't ready to face that scene yet. Your parents called my cell phone, she said, about 10 minutes from her place. I don't know how they got the number. What did they say? Your mom wanted to know what I told you. Said there's been a misunderstanding and I'm making it worse by getting involved. I just shook my head. I told her I didn't tell you anything except what I saw. Then your dad got on the phone. He said I should be careful about interfering in family business. That was a threat. I know what a threat sounds like. I told him to lose my number and hung up. Then I blocked them both because I don't have time for that drama. I'm so sorry they dragged you into this, Rosalie. Don't be, she said, a glint in her eye. This is the most interesting thing that's happened to me in months. And I clearly picked the right side. We arrived at her place. It was a small, tastefully decorated townhouse. Chairman, of course, was exactly as judgmental as she'd described, staring at me like I owed him money. Guest rooms upstairs, first door on the left. Bathroom across the hall. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen. Thank you, I managed. Seriously, I barely slept that night. I spent most of it hunched over my laptop, going through emails, documenting every single detail. Around 3 a.m., an email from Rebecca Walsh popped up. Subject: you need to see this. Attached was a PDF. It was a quitclaim deed, filed with the Montgomery County Recorder of Deeds office 5 days ago, just after I'd left for Ohio. The deed transferred ownership of my property from me to my parents, as joint tenants with right of survivorship. The signature at the bottom was supposedly mine. It wasn't even close. Whoever forged it had practiced, but not nearly enough. The letter formations were all wrong. The pressure, different. But the most damning evidence? The acknowledgement section stated it had been notarized on a date when I was physically in Ohio. I had flight records, hotel receipts, time-stamped photos from the plant to prove it. Rebecca had even compared the forged signature to my mortgage documents. It looked like someone had traced an old signature and then tried to recreate it freehand, shaky in places where mine was fluid, too careful where mine was quick. Rebecca's email explained the rest. Once this fraudulent deed was filed and my parents appeared as owners in the public record, they could list the property, sign a sales agreement, and arrange the transaction without ever needing me there. They'd essentially stolen the house on paper first, then sold it. The notary who stamped it either hadn't verified identity properly or had falsified the acknowledgement entirely. The buyers, the Collins family, were from Delaware County. They'd sold their previous home, had cash, and had been scheduled to close in just 8 days. At 6 a.m., I finally gave up on sleep and went downstairs. Rosalie was already up, working at her kitchen table, coffee brewing, Chairman supervising from his throne. You look terrible, she said, but her eyes were kind. Didn't sleep, I mumbled. But I found out how they did it. Filed a fraudulent deed, transferring ownership from me to them. Then listed and sold it as if it was theirs. That's insane, she breathed, pouring me coffee without asking. What's your move today? Meeting with my attorney at 9. Filing police reports. Undoing this whole goddamn mess. And I need to grab my truck from my place at some point. You want me to come with? Extra set of eyes. Moral support. I hesitated again. Old habits die hard. You've already done more than enough, Rosalie. I'm offering, she insisted. Besides, Chairman needs some alone time to plot world domination, and honestly, I'm invested now. All right, I said, a small, grateful smile escaping. Thanks. Rebecca's office was in King of Prussia. She was late 40s, sharp suit, even sharper eyes. When we arrived, she had the entire case laid out across her conference table. Before we start, she began, I need to know your goals here. Civil recovery? Criminal prosecution? Or both? Both, I said, without a second thought. That's going to be ugly, she warned. Your parents will likely face felony charges, third-degree felony for deed forgery, potentially additional charges for identity theft, theft by deception, filing false documents. We're talking potential prison time if the DA decides to prosecute, and if I only pursue civil. You can sue for damages, yes, but the criminal aspect doesn't disappear just because you don't pursue it. Once we file the police report and show evidence of felony fraud, the DA's office can prosecute independently. They take deed fraud very seriously in this county. So either way, they're facing criminal charges? Most likely, yes. The forgery is well documented. And the notary situation makes it even worse. Someone notarized a document claiming you signed it, but you were provably out of state. We'll need to identify that notary." She outlined the next steps. An emergency hearing in 2 days to void the fraudulent deed and halt the sale, then a criminal complaint with the DA's office. The buyers would get their earnest money back. Civil damages would be pursued separately. The buyers are victims here, too, Rebecca emphasized. They acted in good faith based on fraudulent paperwork. I reached out to their attorney this morning. They're devastated, but they understand this isn't your fault. I want to talk to them, I said, my voice firm. If possible, I want to make sure they know I'll cover their actual losses from this. I can arrange that, she replied, but it'll take a day or two to coordinate schedules. The wait was frustrating, but I understood. Later that afternoon, Rosalie drove me to my house so I could finally get my truck. Police tape was still up, but the property was clear. I grabbed my keys, started the truck, and followed Rosalie back to her place. The day before the emergency hearing, I drove to my parents' house with Rosalie. Not for support, but as a witness. They needed to understand what was coming before they walked into that courtroom. I found them in their living room. Drake was there too, glued to his phone on the couch. They all looked up when I walked in. Nobody smiled. "We need to talk," my dad started, a weak attempt at control. "No," I cut him off, my voice ice. "You need to listen." I pulled a folder from under my arm and set it on their coffee table. "What's that?" my mom asked, her voice tight with apprehension. "Open it." My dad reached for it. He pulled out the first document, and his face went sheet white. He flipped through the pages. The emergency motion, the criminal complaint reference number, screenshots from my doorbell camera with timestamps, photos Rosalie had taken with license plates visible, and the forged deed itself, with Rebecca's comparison analysis attached. "After everything we spent raising you," my mom whispered, her voice shaking, "you're really doing this?" "Read page 4. I instructed, my gaze unwavering. "That's the part where the DA explains how forgery involving a deed can be graded as a third-degree felony. Then read page 7. That's where my attorney estimates damages, including what you cost the Collins family. Their kid was going to have a purple room with stars." Drake, who had been trying to pretend he wasn't there, went pale. He was still staring at his phone like it might save him, but his hands were frozen. "You knew," I said to him, the realization hitting me like a fresh wave of disgust. "Mom and Dad told you what they were planning, didn't they?" He stammered. "I didn't. I mean, they said they were figuring something out, but I didn't think they'd actually." "You knew they were talking about my house, and you didn't warn me?" Drake's face flushed red with indignation. "What was I supposed to do? They're paying for my wedding. I can't just." "They said you'd be fine." I finished for him, a bitter laugh escaping me. "They said you always land on your feet. So you stayed quiet while they committed fraud because it benefited you." "Family takes care of each other," my dad interjected, but his voice had lost all certainty. "You were trying to steal from me to fund his wedding." I shot back, pointing at Drake. "That's not family. That's just theft with a warm backstory." "Family assets belong to everyone," my mom repeated, but now it sounded rehearsed, desperate, a pathetic attempt to cling to their delusion. "Then I'm claiming your retirement as communal property," I stated. "Fair trade." The room went silent. Drake was still staring blankly at his phone. My dad had gone from white to an angry shade of red. My mom was openly sobbing, but this time, it felt different, more real. "The hearing is tomorrow at 10 a.m., I said, standing up. "You should probably bring your lawyer. And that notary who stamped fraudulent paperwork while I was in another state should probably get one, too." I left the folder on the table and walked out. Rosalie followed. We didn't say anything until we were back in the truck. "That was brutal," she said softly. "Had to be done," I replied. "And now I know Drake was part of it. Think he'll show up tomorrow?" "Probably," Rosalie muttered. "Can't help himself." The next morning, before the hearing, I finally met David and Claire Collins. Their 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, was with them. They'd sold their previous house, were renting temporarily, and had found mine through a contact my parents knew in real estate. They'd scraped together everything they had for the purchase. They'd already given notice at their rental. Sophie was already enrolled in the local school district. Their entire plan hinged on moving in next week. Claire cried, openly. David kept apologizing to me, as if any of this was his fault. "I'm so sorry," he kept saying. "We had no idea." "This isn't on you," I told them, my heart aching for their distress. You did everything right. My parents committed fraud, and you got caught in the aftermath. I'm going to make sure you don't lose money over this. What about temporary housing? Claire asked, tears still streaming. Our lease is up in 2 weeks. Rebecca stepped in, calm and reassuring. We're going to document all your losses. That includes moving costs, any lost deposits, temporary housing expenses, everything. Once the criminal case establishes the fraud, we'll pursue full damages through civil court. Sophie, who had been quietly coloring by the window, looked up. We were going to do purple with stars, she said, her voice small. That sounds beautiful, sweetie, Rosalie said softly, her eyes welling up a little too. The meeting ended with the Collins agreeing to cooperate. They left looking utterly devastated, but at least not angry at me. The emergency hearing was that afternoon. The judge, a woman named Wong, was in her late 50s. Sharp as a tack, and clearly someone who had seen every variation of human stupidity imaginable. She listened intently to Rebecca's opening statement, reviewed all the evidence we'd submitted, then turned to my parents' attorney, some poor guy named Donald, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else on the planet. Counselor, Judge Wong began, her voice level, help me understand your client's position. They're listed as grantees on a quitclaim deed dated 5 days after the plaintiff departed for an out-of-state work assignment. The deed bears what your clients claim is the plaintiff's signature, notarized on a date when the plaintiff can prove, through multiple sources, he was physically in Ohio. Then your clients initiated a sale of this property. What exactly is your defense? Donald cleared his throat, beads of sweat on his forehead. Your Honor, my clients maintain that there was an understanding within the family that the property would be considered shared. An understanding? Judge Wong repeated, a hint of steel entering her voice. Was this understanding documented in any way? A written agreement? A recorded deed executed by the plaintiff while he was still in Pennsylvania? Any evidence of this understanding beyond your client's say-so? Family relationships have certain, Donald started. Counselor, we're talking about real property here, not a borrowed car, not a verbal promise. A recorded deed with a notarized signature. Are you prepared to argue that your clients reasonably believe they could transfer title based on a verbal family understanding? Donald looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Your Honor, my clients acted with the belief that they were helping their son manage his assets during a difficult time. What difficult time? Judge Wong shot back. The plaintiff was on a work assignment. He was employed, current on his mortgage, and by all accounts, managing his assets perfectly well. Your clients filed a deed bearing what appears to be a forged signature, then initiated a sale without the actual owner's knowledge. How is any of that help? My mother, in the gallery, started sobbing, loud, shaking sobs. Judge Wong looked over her reading glasses, a chilling gaze. Ma'am, if you can't control yourself, I'll have you removed. Rebecca then presented financial records showing 6 months of attempted fraud, credit checks, utility applications, attempted employment interference. Judge Wong's expression grew harder, colder, with each page. Counselor, she said, her voice now truly cutting. Are your clients aware that what we're looking at here potentially constitutes multiple felonies under Pennsylvania law? Forgery of a deed can be graded as a third-degree felony. Identity theft, filing false documents. Are your clients prepared for the criminal investigation that will follow this hearing? Donald looked helplessly at my parents. My dad was staring at the table, utterly defeated. My mom had stopped her dramatic sobbing. Now she just looked genuinely terrified. Here's my ruling, Judge Wong stated, her voice resonating through the courtroom. The quitclaim deed filed 5 days ago is void. Title remains solely with the plaintiff as originally recorded. The attempted sale is canceled effective immediately. The buyer's earnest money will be returned from escrow with any accrued interest. I'm referring this entire matter to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. The notary who stamped this document will also be subject to investigation. Clerk will provide copies of all relevant documents to the DA. We are adjourned. The gavel slammed down, echoing through the stunned silence. My parents tried to approach me in the hallway, my dad's face a mixture of anger and raw fear. This is going to destroy our lives, he hissed. You destroyed your own lives? I told him, my voice flat. I'm just refusing to be destroyed with you. Drake's wedding is in 3 weeks. Do you understand what you're doing to him? I understand that you tried to steal my house to pay for it. That's what I understand. My mom grabbed my arm, desperate. Please, we can fix this. We'll pay you back somehow. Just talk to the DA. Tell them we made a mistake. I didn't file the criminal charges, I reminded her. The judge referred it to the DA. Even if I wanted to drop it, which I don't, I couldn't. You're going to send us to prison, she whispered, utterly defeated. No, I said, looking her directly in the eye. You're going to prison because you committed multiple felonies. I'm just not lying for you anymore. They shuffled away, Donald trailing awkwardly behind them. Rebecca and I returned to her office. Civil damages will take time to calculate properly, she explained. Once we document everything and the criminal case establishes the fraud, we'll file for summary judgment. Probably 3 to 4 months out. How much are we talking? I asked. The Collins documented losses, your legal fees, credit monitoring, security system upgrades, any temporary housing costs, probably in the range of 70 to 80,000 total. They don't have that kind of money, I stated. I know, she replied, a glint in her eye. But we're getting a judgment anyway. We can pursue collection against recoverable assets once we have it. Good. Over the next few months, the legal machinery ground forward relentlessly. The DA filed charges. Arraignment happened. My parents pleaded not guilty, clinging to some impossible hope. The preliminary hearing bound them over for trial. The notary investigation revealed negligent practices. She'd stamped the document based on someone presenting ID, but they couldn't prove she knew it was fraudulent. Still, she lost her commission. Drake's wedding? Postponed. Then, entirely canceled. Luna ended the engagement once she understood the full scope of what my parents had done. She apparently had no idea until everything became public. My parents' financial situation rapidly deteriorated. Legal fees piled up, forcing them to sell assets, downsize. Their retirement, years of supposed planning, evaporated. They moved from their house into a smaller rental before the trial even started. The trial itself lasted 3 brutal days. The prosecution presented an airtight case, methodically laying out every piece of evidence. The defense tried to argue confusion and family emergency, but it was a desperate, losing battle against documented fraud. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. 2 weeks later, sentencing. The judge gave my dad 4 years in state prison. My mom got 3 years. Both would be eligible for parole after serving minimum terms, but they'd be convicted felons for life. I sat in the courtroom for the sentencing. Drake was there, huddled with my Aunt Carol and Uncle Jim. He stared at me the entire time, eyes burning with a mix of hatred and accusation. When the judge read the sentences, Drake actually stood up, his voice cracking. Are you happy now? They're going to prison because you couldn't let it go. The judge's gavel slammed down. Sit down, or you'll join them for contempt. Drake dropped back into his seat, but continued to glare. After the sentencing, he cornered me in the hallway, his face contorted. I hope you can live with yourself, he spat. You destroyed our parents' lives. You destroyed my relationship. You destroyed this family. No. I corrected him, my voice calm, steady. They committed multiple felonies. They stole from me. They tried to destroy my credit. This isn't about a house, Drake. It's about them viewing me as something to exploit. But we're family. Family is supposed to forgive. Family doesn't steal from family. I retorted, my eyes boring into his. And you knew what they were planning. That makes you part of it. You're cold, he sneered, just like Dad. No, I said, shaking my head. I'm nothing like Dad. I have boundaries. I have integrity. I don't commit felonies against people I claim to love. He stormed away. I haven't heard from him since. Rebecca filed the civil suit and got summary judgment 4 months after the sentencing. $73,000 in damages. My parents couldn't pay from prison. After release, they'd be on payment plans for decades, assuming they could find work as convicted felons. The Collins family eventually found another house and reached out to thank me for covering their documented expenses through the civil recovery. As for Rosalie and me, we started dating officially about 6 months after everything settled. It wasn't some dramatic movie moment. It was a natural progression from neighbors to friends to something more. She understood what I'd been through because she'd witnessed it all firsthand. She had her own history, her own reasons for valuing honest communication and clear boundaries. We just worked. Neither of us needed the other to be perfect. We just needed each other to be present. 8 months after sentencing, I went to visit my parents in prison. Not to reconcile. Not to seek an apology. I went to make something absolutely, unequivocally clear. They brought my mom out first. She looked older, thinner. Prison had hollowed her out. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice small. "I'm not here for a reunion," I stated, my voice steady. "I'm here to tell you something, and I need you to hear it. What you did wasn't help. It was theft. You saw me as a resource. You saw my house as something you could just take. That's not how any of this works." She started crying, a fresh wave of tears. "I know. I've had time to think in here. When you get out," I continued, leaving no room for doubt, "we are not going to have a relationship. I'm not going to take your calls. I'm not going to come to family events. You made that choice the moment you forged my signature." "But we're family," she pleaded. "No," I cut her off. "You're people who raised me and then profoundly betrayed me. That's not family. And don't tell me about Drake struggling. He lost everything. Can you please?" "No," I repeated firmly. "Drake made his choices. He knew what you were planning, and he stayed quiet. He's dealing with his own consequences, just like you are." I stood up. She reached across the table, her hand trembling, but stopped herself. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, the words feeling utterly hollow. "It doesn't mean anything, though." They brought my dad out next. He looked harder, angrier, like prison had just concentrated every bitter, resentful emotion in him. "Come to gloat," he sneered. "Come to make something clear," I corrected. "You made choices. You're living with the results." "You put your own parents in prison," he accused, his voice thick with fury. "Over property rights? Over trust. You never saw me as your son," I explained, trying to make him understand one last time. "You saw me as funding for Drake's life. Drake needed help. So did I. But when it came to choosing between Drake's wants and my actual rights, you picked him every single time. He needed more. I was self-sufficient because you forced me to be. Then you punished me for it by deciding my independence meant you could take whatever you wanted." He just stared at me. "So this is it. You're done." "I was done," I told him, "the moment you filed that fraudulent deed." "You're exactly like me," he scoffed. "Cold." "No," I said, shaking my head slowly. "I have boundaries. I have integrity. I don't commit felonies against people I claim to love." I left without saying goodbye. I drove back to Rosalie's place. She was waiting with coffee, and Chairman, who had fully accepted me by this point, was already claiming my lap as his territory. "How'd it go?" she asked softly. I said what I needed to say. I replied, "That's done. How do you feel?" "Lighter," I admitted. My phone buzzed. A text from Drake. "Thanks for nothing. Mom's having a hard time and Dad's getting into problems. Hope you're proud." I showed it to Rosalie. "Thoughts?" "Block him," she said simply. And I did. I blocked Drake's number. I blocked my parents' prison contact methods. I blocked every relative who had taken their side, creating an unbreachable distance. My parents served their time, both released on good behavior after their minimum terms. Drake tried reaching out once, through someone we both knew, claiming he wanted to apologize. I told that person I wasn't interested. When my parents got out, they were broke, convicted felons with limited prospects. And Drake? He didn't offer to help them. Said he couldn't afford it. Said he needed to focus on rebuilding his own life. The kid who'd been worth stealing for suddenly had boundaries when it cost him something. My parents ended up in subsidized housing, working the menial jobs they could get with their records, living the full consequences they had built for themselves. I still live in my house. I've made it fully mine in ways that truly matter. Rosalie moved in last year, bringing Chairman and all her design equipment. We split everything equally. It's a partnership built on respect, not exploitation. Independence, not dependence. Sometimes people ask if I regret what happened, if I wish I'd handled it differently, if I ever think about reconciling. The answer is always, unequivocally, no. They made their choices. I made mine. Mine involved protecting myself and holding people accountable. Theirs involved theft and lies and expecting me to accept it simply because we shared DNA. I chose correctly, and I would choose the same way every single time. So that's my story. It was a long, painful road, but I finally found peace. I'm curious, though. Have you ever faced a situation where family crossed a line this big? What would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear your thoughts.